row, and it's never been done ever before, so real interesting half of football. How City haven't took the lead late on there, I'm not so sure, but something to think about.
So at half-time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it is Spurs 0, City 0. Well, let's go back to the studio and we can join Natalie.
So it is half-time and the title challenge remains on a knife edge. It is City 0, Spurs 0 at the break. I'm still joined in the studio by Nedum and by Izzy. Nedum gives you first overall analysis of that first 45 minutes.
I think it was interesting the way Spurs were playing without number 9 and for them to be trying to attack down the sides. And you can see that they're having a go, but I don't think it suits them. But I think from a City standpoint, I think it took them maybe a couple of minutes to make the adjustment. But then as I look at them, it feels like they've got other gears to go up through. I don't think Spurs do. But in those sorts of games, this is when you need to be able to punish the opposition. I think they've had 1 or 2 opportunities, say, in attack where you'd want them to be more clinical, you want the final pass to be better, you want to finish with more shots. But I think ultimately going in 0-0 at half-time, obviously they'll be disappointed, but I think this is where the manager and the coaching staff really earn their money because they've seen some stuff which could really benefit them. Yeah. And they imagine that's what they'll be going out into the second half, knowing that they need to get a goal.
OK, I like that. Izzy, what do you think they've seen?
Well, the best moments that City have found themselves in have come from wide areas. Kyle Walker and Guardiola. I think Kyle Walker twice, Guardiola once, where the best chances have come, and then that last one at the end, which was, I think, was offside with Foden. But you'd go in those situations, you want your Bernardos, you want your Fodens, you want your Grealishes, your Dokus, in those areas where they can create. So I think Pep will be looking at it and thinking, right, how does he, go with the structure and maybe bring another attacking player on, sacrifice a defender, maybe be more comfortable with 3 defenders on the pitch and swing it that way. But De Bruyne has not been in the game. And with the game, if it does continue like it is, I hate to say it, but I can see him coming off the pitch because the game isn't made for De Bruyne the way it is. He's had a few opportunities to play Haaland and he's not found him. He's just let that pass. But Spurs are going full throttle, and you've spot on, Nedum. City have still got a couple more gears, but they've just got to find the right key to unlock it now.
In terms of that's really interesting what you say about De Bruyne there, and I bet there's a few people watching that would be surprised to think that we would ever consider taking him off. What do you mean when you say it's not the game for him?
Well, transitional game, and I think there has been, I wouldn't want to take him off at all, but I've seen it with Pep this season where he's actually taken De Bruyne off when people have been surprised by that, but it's actually been, in Pep's mind for the benefit of the team to get a result over the line. And this is a situation where if he's not been in the game and the game is transitional and it's fast-paced, I would say De Bruyne is more effective when they're a little bit tighter. Now, you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I'd go, no, this is a game for De Bruyne. But I think there was a couple of times he's just not felt it. Mind you, he'll probably come out in the second half and do something magical, and I'll just look stupid sitting here. But I want to see him on the pitch, but I'm just thinking in my head ahead. I'm going, maybe he'll bring on somebody with a little bit more pace that's going to stretch Tottenham and cause that threat in behind and maybe make Tottenham think twice about this game plan that they put out in the first half.
In terms about the game plan that Tottenham have had, you were saying immediately, Nedum, how narrow you felt they were playing, and was that unexpected for you?
Yeah, well, I think some people have seen them play narrow this season, but not necessarily in the way that they've done it now, to where you're seeing fullbacks for City be able to be the ones who are breaking it behind with tons of space in front of them. Maybe some of that's to do with the fact that, say, Van der Ven's play as a centre-back is playing left-back. Yeah. Maybe he wants to be tighter from that side. But it's ended up being an option for City. And also, I think as you look at Haaland, you look at De Bruyne, look at Foden, they're also really narrow to start with. So maybe that was the plan from City, to create some of that space out wide. But Spurs are giving it a different look. I think the fact that they don't have someone playing through the middle is unfamiliar for them. And they've used it to a certain extent quite well to move the ball to certain areas. Yeah. But then when there's an opportunity for them to get the ball in the box, there's nobody there. So you can see it's a team that's trying something new. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it feels like to me. But again, from City's perspective, after a while, it's not new. And yes, they had 1 or 2 opportunities to be able to read it. But to almost piggyback on what Izzy was saying as well, this is like a width game. And I think for some of the areas in which players have gone through, whether it's been Vardy or whether it's been Walker, if you could get that whereby it's a Grealish, it's a Doku, it's an Oscar Bob, then maybe the outcomes are different because they're more aggressive and their first thought isn't to necessarily cut back for someone. Is to drive towards a goal, because some of these opportunities, you don't get them many times over within a game.
In terms of statistically, I don't know the last time I recall any game where City have not dominated possession. Spurs have 55% possession in the first half. What do you think that tells us, Izzy?
Well, that makes me think about the start of the game, where, you know, you can always see in the first 5 minutes of a game how both managers have set either team up. You called it within 5 seconds. You went false nine. False nine as in Spurs were playing without a striker. And Spurs, that then gives Spurs the opportunity to dictate the ball more from deep. So the keeper, the back four, and the midfield 4 or 5, however you want to look at it. Because they don't have a striker up the pitch, they've got more bodies in the build-up phase. So with that makes me think Spurs are trying to retain the ball because they know City are so good with the ball. So they've opted to kind of suck City in and play on the break. I don't think City will be too concerned with that figure because City will know as much as we do sitting here that they have got an extra gear. Like Rodri's been passing the ball at play that's so uncharacteristic of him. He'll figure it out half-time, he'll be fine. And the rest of the team will come out fine. It'll just be a couple of little things. But Spurs are in a false sense of security at the moment. They think they're in the game right now, which they are. But City, you know, once they find that key, it could get nasty for Spurs.
Yeah, we saw an error by Rodri, you know, happens every now and again. We saw a couple of errors by Ruben Diaz as well. Do you think there's an edge of nervousness in the team?
There might be, but I don't think it's any more than any sort of normal game because in the build-up to it, I think you feel it. But once you're actually playing and, you know, some of those errors, like for Rodri, it's happened right at the end of the first half. You know, for Ruben, it's halfway through the first half. They've done lots of good things to that point. So I wouldn't necessarily pin that down to nervousness. I think people just make mistakes. But it surprises you due to the nature of those 2 mistakes that we're talking about. Because Rodri ball, you know, it wasn't close to anyone. The Ruben Diaz one, it's a misunderstanding with Bernardo Silva, who, you know, he's played with for 3-4 years now and plays with for international football. So certain things are just slightly off. But I think what's best now is, I think at times when you see City and you don't see them be at their absolute best, you know that they'll get better, whether it's a personal pride thing, whether it's a collective pride thing, whether it's a management thing or the task itself. So the way they'll play in the second half will likely have a bit more sort of like impetus, a bit more energy, it'll be cleaner, it'll be more decisive because they know that they have to get better, they know that they can get better as well.
And for both teams, as it stands, a draw suits nobody.
Nobody at all.
So if Spurs want to keep challenging for the Champions League spot, they have to win or it goes to Aston Villa. If we want to be in control of winning the league come Sunday, we have to win. How's that impact the second half?
I think it impacts it a lot. To be honest, the way that I perceive this game, it feels like a second leg of like a Champions League game or something.
Definitely.
Because the end outcome, even though it's like 3 points, it feels like something else. It feels like more. Yeah. You know, for Spurs to have a chance of them finishing top 4, they have to win. For City to know that going into the game, like imagine the feeling. If you win this game today for City, you can focus 100% of your energy towards doing what you have to do and not worry about what Arsenal do. Yeah. But then from when, you know, if that doesn't end up being the case, then there's a doubt in there. You know, when you have to rely on hope as well as brilliance, it puts you in a funny position. But as I say, I think as this game progresses, whoever scores first or so on. Like, if this is 0-0 after 80 minutes, you're probably going to see some attacking changes from both sets of teams. And I think that's where City will probably benefit more because they've got more attackers available. And I think they've got more sort of like ways to try and defeat a team. Whereas for Spurs, it feels like it's Kulusevski. And then maybe like, you know, something positive happening with a bit of individual brilliance.
So in terms of any changes, I mean, with Pep, it's, you know, it's always hard to guess. But I mean, at half-time, would it be very unlikely ever unless it was enforced. In terms of the second half, what do you want to see towards the start of the second half and when do you think we might see some changes?
The interesting player that I think would be suited right now is Grealish. And the reason I say that is because the amount of fouls he draws. And I actually think City can benefit now from maybe taking this thing out of Spurs a little bit by getting Grealish out 1v1, nicking the ball around his fullback or winning a foul, slowing the game down, taking control again. Because City have to remember, you know, they're champions. They're on the quest to get their 4th consecutive Premier League trophy. They're in control of the situation. They need to bring some of that control into the second half because I think the way that Spurs have set up is to take away the control from City. So for me, I would put Grealish maybe at some point, maybe see how the second half pans out, but Grealish is the man that I would turn to. I don't know what you think, Nedum.
Yeah, I think Grealish could be a good option, actually, because I see like the attacking potential of a Doku, you know, when a game is stretched, but then you don't have to win the game in the 46th minute. No. So someone like a Jack, if he happens to be someone that will come on at half-time, you know he's got that defensive side of things as well as the attacking stuff. And I think he can have a... Right now, I think he has a better feel for a Premier League game than Doku does. But one thing for sure is that if the game is progressing and City need goals, like Doku, Alvarez, Oscar Bobs, you'll see those faces, and it'll be the type of game that, you know, you'll be really interested in.
In terms of experience, if you're thinking about Jack and Doku, obviously Jack was there last season. Jack has experienced this level of pressure with City and this level, whereas it'd be new to Doku. Is that something you take into consideration?
Not necessarily, because, you know, we don't know how someone's going to deal with pressure until they actually deal with it, you know. So to say that you can't, like, it's one of those paradoxes. So some people they only want experienced players to play in big moments, but then you'll never play in a big moment if you don't have the experience.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to let someone try it out. And I think the manager, the coaching staff, they'll know the strengths and weaknesses of every player in that squad. And every strength can be suited to any particular situation. So I think with that in mind, if they make a change, they'll make the right call. Whether it's, you know, Kevin coming off, Bernardo, whomever rather, it'll be the right change for the moment. And I think the biggest thing at halftime now, I think Pep would have said to his players, everybody calm down.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to do this. Because realistically, as we've seen through lots of these documentaries across the years, you know, he doesn't get flustered by moments because he can take himself away from that and see what's needed to be successful.
Thank you very much, as always, for sending in your WhatsApp questions. I'm going to get through a few of them now. There's a good variety of questions this evening. So, Lewis says, when Guardiola was younger, he wanted to be a striker. I think we're seeing that now, Lewis. So I wanted to ask, when the guests were younger, did you want to play in a different position?
Yes, absolutely.
Striker? Was everyone a striker?
Well, I think when you think about, like, have you ever seen someone do a knee slide after making a tackle?
Yeah. No, you see them punch in the air.
Because you want that moment where you're wheeling off, doing all the celebrations. That's what you thrive. That's realistically, that's why we watch football.
Yeah.
You watch football for the goals. And I think if you can become the person that gets loads of those, then yeah, I'd imagine you want to be a striker. Don't get me wrong, after a while you realise it maybe doesn't suit you and suit your game, and other strengths might be yours. But there's a feeling about scoring a goal, which is the thing that you just can't get enough of. And if you're good enough, you've got to be a striker.
And of course, you would know about that from your Copenhagen goal, which we've not talked about in a while.
Yeah, I scored in Europe for Man City, yeah. I did do that, yeah.
OK, Izzy?
Big time. I played right wing growing up, and to be honest with you, I moved from right wing to centre midfield, and I think I was one of the people that preferred assisting and scoring. So I found those two positions, I was assisting a lot more than scoring. And then at City, I became a goal-scoring midfielder, and it was almost like my mindset had switched from wanting to assist people to, I was like, no, give me the ball inside the box and I'll score. So
you want the knee slide?
Yeah, I've done a few. I've done a few knee slides in a City shirt.
Thrilling feeling.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
I have a 6-year-old. They all want to be a striker. All of them. They're all scoring the goals. They're all chasing the ball. No one is assisting. Nobody is passing. Love that question. Thank you so much. Lewis has said, City players are under pressure today, but what's the most pressure Nedum and Izzy remember playing under?
For me personally, I think from a City perspective, I was lucky enough to be around the City team when they won the league in 2012 for a bit, played in a couple of games there. But from a personal one, it's almost 10 years ago to the day. In fact, 10 years ago on Sunday at QPR, we won the semi-final of the playoffs. And then the final was 2 weeks later. And to play at Wembley, knowing like almost the fate of the football club depended on you winning this game of football, that was true pressure, especially because we were like heavily favoured to be going up anyway. Like obviously the club itself isn't doing great now, but the club wouldn't even be in the position it's in now if we didn't go up that season. So that was huge pressure, and you know that's why they call it the richest game in football.
Love that. Izzy?
So Man City playing for City against Lyon, semi-final or quarter-final of Champions League here, second leg. And I got the nod from the manager to move from my centre midfield role into a false 9, like a couple of days before the game. So it was quick turnaround, quick training sessions. I felt a lot of pressure, but I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Love that. Leon as well. Crikey, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Also, I'm just going to make sure that Nedum knows here as well. People responded to your WhatsApp. The teams are in the tunnel, so we're going to go back now. But I just want to quickly let you know, we did a moment of the season before the game. Nedum disagreed with... Oh, no, not a moment. Assist of the season. Well, just to say, there was absolutely loads of people that replied agreeing with you. Some disagreed with you, but the majority agreed
Power
with
of engagement, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Get a single camera on me, happy days.
Nedum, Izzy, thank you very much. The teams are coming back out. We'll be back with you in 45 minutes. I will be crying. I'm just going to tell you. Either way, I'm going to be crying in 45 minutes. So get yourself back over to the City app if you're not watching on there. Alistair Mann and Michael Brown will take you through this full second half. City need to win to continue the dream of 4 Premier Leagues in a row. Come on, Blues, we got this. We'll see you in 45 minutes.
Thank you, Natalie. Welcome back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's worth bearing in mind that this scoreline does neither team much good, to be honest with you. Spurs cannot qualify for the Champions League with a draw. City, in all honesty, will probably be handing the title over to Arsenal with a draw. So one way or another, you feel that these two teams are going to be a little less cagey and a little more expansive, maybe take a few more chances in the second half. At the moment, alongside me, former City and Spurs midfielder Michael Brown, we're watching a really intense circle of City players geeing each other up in a huddle. That tells you how much they're focused.
Yes, it does. They ultimately realise Pep Guardiola just get a shot of him. He's closed his eyes, he rubs his forehead. In the centre of that circle, all the players having a little bit of a go. A bit of information passed on and saying, this is it. This is the moment. Everybody give everything you've possibly got. Keep composed, keep doing the right things, and we'll get our opportunity. As you've said, Spurs will also go for it towards the end of this game. It's going to be an interesting second half.
It is going to be a very interesting second half, which City get underway with De Bruyne hitting it all the way back to Ederson. Ederson hits a long high ball forward up towards Haaland. Romero misses it, Foden gets to it, loses it to Pedro Porro, but Rodri wins it back for the Blues. Ruben Diaz in the centre circle, just goes out of the centre circle and plays a ball out wide to Walker. Walker inside the Spurs half, goes on towards De Bruyne. De Bruyne with Dragushin. Dragushin's challenge comes off De Bruyne and goes out for a goal kick. I don't think the assistant knew what it was. I don't think the referee knew what it was. In the end, they kind of both agreed that it was a goal kick to Spurs. The interesting statistic from the first half is that Spurs had about 57-58% possession. Now, if you look back through the previous games at this new stadium in recent years, City have had 65, 66, 67% possession. It is a very different Spurs team, and they've lost the ball, playing out from the back, and De Bruyne on the swerve. Great save for Vicario. Spurs playing out from the back, made a horrible mess of it. It broke for De Bruyne. He swerved and hit it, and Vicario, maybe just a little too close to him, was able to parry it away, but another good chance for City.
Oh, top save. Kanji stepping forward, and then as it falls to Kevin De Bruyne, edge of the area, this is a big save. He sort of spins, hits it early, great contact. That left arm comes across, sort of hip height, just pushes it away. It was a big chance. He took it really well, as you said. Kevin De Bruyne just didn't find that far corner.
Yep, and forward comes Spurs with Højbjerg. He goes backwards and gives it straight to Bernardo Silva, and that will go out off Maddison for a City throw. Just inside City's half, Walker with the ball in his hands. Now the ball in his right hand, throws it back to Diaz. Diaz midway inside the City half, pops it over to this near side. I don't think it'll reach, or it did reach Guardiola. Porro, I think, gave up on that, and Foden's got it. Foden has Romero holding on to it. Lays it back to Kovacic. Kovacic gets away from Romero, helps it on to Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva scampers forward, still midway inside the Spurs half, goes back to Diaz. Diaz on to Akanji. Akanji in the centre circle. On it goes to Diaz. Diaz under pressure finds Kovacic. Kovacic taps it on to Foden. Foden out wide to Gvardiol. Gvardiol to the edge of the Spurs area, goes backwards to Kovacic. Kovacic goes backwards further to Akanji. Akanji to Diaz. Diaz pops it out wide to Walker. Walker takes it on the chest, about 40 metres from goal. Plays it back to Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva helps it on to Kovacic. Kovacic inching forward, goes on to De Bruyne.